Back in 2019, I was doing corporate gigs, shooting events, interviews, working in-house 9 to 5 for a company. And I felt like a tool, even though I was a videographer and I was doing something that I was supposed to love, something that I chose. I was really asking myself whether this is why I became a filmmaker. I remember coming home after a full day of work and not having energy to even talk to my wife. I would just come home, have dinner, and went straight into bed. I didn't have energy to be creative. I almost didn't want to pick up my camera. And I know that I'm not the only one who felt that way. Today, I am in a different situation. I work as a documentary cinematographer. But, that didn't happen overnight. It took 4 to 5 years to get here. And today I want to talk about the journey because maybe you feel exactly how I felt back in 2019. So yeah, I was living in Switzerland back in 2019, working as an in-house videographer, doing 9 to 5. And even though the money was good, the work wasn't fulfilling. I knew that I bought camera 3 years before that for a reason. I wanted to tell stories, but somehow I got lost, in building the career, trying to provide. And it was really getting onto my mind. I was, as I said, coming home anxious, tired. I didn't have the energy to do anything. And so I knew that I had to make some radical changes. And the first change that I did was when COVID hit, I was able to take some time off and I dedicated 6 months to focus on personal projects. In order to do that, I really needed to reduce my expenses. And so me and my wife, we moved to Asia for a few months. And because of that lifestyle reduction, I was able to invest my time and a little bit of money in personal projects, in creating films that I wanted to be hired for. And this was really the beginning of the journey. It took 6 months. I created, I think, 3 personal projects. And one of those did really well. It got some momentum. And probably you expect that now I'm going to say that changed everything. But it didn't. That project opened a few doors there and there, but I still had to go back to Switzerland and I still had to do corporate gigs, this time as a freelancer. But I knew that other journey, other path is possible.
These are the days we'll remember, the moments we'll treasure. Oh, could this get any better? See the beauty all around. There's always one.
From that moment onwards, I basically dedicated my focus to making sure that I'm following the path that I've set for myself, that was becoming a documentary filmmaker, a documentary cinematographer. And in order to do that, I knew that, I couldn't keep the lifestyle that I lived in Switzerland. And I was really feeling that Switzerland or a country where you have a high income can sort of become a golden cage because you become trapped in doing work that you don't enjoy just to make money to pay things that are necessary, but maybe you don't even enjoy those. And so we've decided to make a radical decision. And after 2.5 years, almost 3 years, we've decided to leave Switzerland and we moved to Buenos Aires for a few months, where my wife is from. And again, in Buenos Aires, it was about reducing expenses. So living in an apartment of my wife's parents, a small apartment in the center, and really putting my time into making a solid personal project. This was at the beginning of 2022. I was doing a little bit of remote editing for some of the corporate companies that needed that, but most of my time I was spending on YouTube and on personal projects. So, if there's a lesson, it's that in the beginning, the things that you put effort into and that you really enjoy might not be bringing the results in terms of, for example, finances. The films I was making I was actually spending money on those. The time that I was putting into YouTube, I wasn't getting anything in return. I had around 1,000 subscribers at that time. But all of these things compound over time. And that compound is something that can only happen if you're consistent. 2022, I made another personal project.
Necesitaba una figura paterna en apoyo de alguien que me quería o que me... Sí, que me quería. Me lo decía. Y que un día me entero, esto pasó un domingo, 9 de enero, me acuerdo yo, que recibo la noticia de que mi padre murió en un accidente de tránsito.
That film got even more recognition, it got into a few festivals, and slowly, I was starting to get hired as a documentary filmmaker. So this was end of 2022. And during that time, I started observing something, started observing these little moments of success, whether that was the first personal project or second personal project or a video going viral on YouTube. And I feel like during that period from 2021 up to, let's say, 2024, which was the first year where I was really fully being hired as a documentary DP, all of these moments were just little proofs that there is a possibility of this working. And I don't know if it's the universe or the Tao or the God or whatever you believe that is sending you these signs, but I know that these signs are there. And I feel like we all have, an inner compass that is kind of leading us towards a certain direction. But oftentimes, and I was the same, we are afraid of following it because we are maybe afraid of losing something or losing an identity that we've built, becoming someone else, losing a quality of life that we've built, and so on. But there comes a point in life where you just can't resist anymore. Because if you do, anxiety creeps in, unhappiness, dissatisfaction, the feeling of not being appreciated. And I've had all of these until the point where I said no more and I started focusing on following the path that my compass was pointing towards.
Times and places are all in.
What's going on with my head?
Who you share 'em with. And it's life. And the point is enjoying who you share it with.
So these 4 to 5 years were, not easy and not straightforward. It was about reducing expenses, moving into countries that allow me to have more free time to work on personal projects, funding those personal projects, putting time into YouTube, even without getting anything in return. And despite all of this, it was worth it. And so if you made it all the way to this part of the video, I think that you probably know what you need to do. For each of us, it's a little different path, little different decisions. But I really believe that if you follow that inner compass for long enough, then it will lead you to a life that you're really meant to live.